Through many discussions and in our searches for truth, we find that we have made much progress. That is to say that we can look past societal narratives and biases and understand that although there is no concrete, universal proof that God exists, our prior discussions have shown us that at the very least it would make more sense to err on the side of belief in God. We must continue searching for our own truth while avoiding the push by those in power to drive the narrative of unbelief. So if we are to lean toward the belief in God, how does a believer express that belief? After all, a belief in a higher power also represents the reality of an afterlife and the consequences associated with it. If we assume God exists, then we need to make sure we are on the correct path of expressing that belief and ultimately earning the best afterlife possible. In short, if God exists, then so does heaven and hell. So getting it right matters. This is most often expressed through religions. Though a man-made construct, we are, after all, human, so we need a human framework to express our faith. But with so many religions, how do we know the right path to take? The answer is to treat this question as we have all the other ones up to this point, with objectivity and logic. We must set up parameters to narrow our search to the religions that most closely match those parameters. Once the search is narrowed, we will test them logically and historically. Parameter 1. We have spent a great deal of time discussing the probability of God's existence. Our conclusion was that the probability is that God does exist. We have reviewed multiple reasons why, but ultimately the existence of the material universe requiring a God that is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient is a central reason. In other words, an all-powerful, everywhere existing and all-knowing God is necessary to initiate creation. Therefore, the first parameter is that the religion must have a God or higher power. We can disregard any religion where the practitioner is themselves God or is on the path to becoming God. Parameter 2. If one is to believe in God, then that would mean that there is an existence that predates or is separate from our own. One that existed before and beyond the one in which we live. Whether this is another dimension, plane of existence, or realm, the fact that God exists means there is something beyond what we know. Some call it heaven, others the Shamayim, Jannah, or the Veil. Parameter 2 is that the religion must have an afterlife. Parameter 3. The search for God is the most important truth one can seek. Humanity is not eternal, and in fact our time on earth is quite fleeting in comparison to creation. It is not surprising then that our mortality and inevitable death would be paramount in our thoughts. The search for God is a search for what lies beyond for us. It is a hope for more and perhaps even something better. A search for God is a search for the afterlife and a means to achieve it. It makes little sense to practice a religion if it will not direct one onto the correct path. It also makes little sense if attaining that goal is impossible. For example, if the goal is to become perfect enough to be worthy to be in the presence of a perfect God by doing enough good works, then one will never reach heaven. Even one stray thought or small sin would make one imperfect. This is why parameter 3 is for a religion to have a logical and achievable means by which to attain a path to God. Parameter 4. Parameter 4 is that the religion must take into account human nature and provide a way to reconcile that nature with God. For example, despite the innocence of a newborn, any parent knows firsthand that even the youngest children will show selfish, aggressive, or antisocial acts. This innately sinful nature does not mean that humans cannot be positive, contributing members of society, but it does mean that they have to work on themselves in order to be so. So parameter 4 is that the religion must take into account humanity's sinful nature and must also provide a way to atone for that nature so as to make one worthy of heaven. This series and the ones to follow are not designed to persuade or dissuade any individual to a specific belief. They are, however, meant to free individuals from bias and allow them to ask their own questions and find their own answers to life's most important truths. The search for God and a religion to express that belief is the pinnacle of importance. The answers we find far outweigh our brief time we will have on earth. As such, we will continue by delving into the religions themselves and give potential believers and non-believers alike a view to the most important questions one can ask about God and the paths of worship to reach the afterlife. For further and more in-depth discussions on this series and related topics, please visit Aware, Care, Share.